Ladies and gentlemen, my guest on Chair Shots to the Cranium interviews is a wrestler who has wrestled all over the world, and he backs it up with tremendous success. He's won countless championships throughout his career, including the WWE Tag Team Championships. He's wrestled for Florida Championship Wrestling, WWE, Lucha Underground, and he's currently touring the independent wrestling scene and wrestling for Universal Championship Wrestling. He's formerly known as Justin Gabriel during his time in WWE. I'm proud to have as my guest the very talented PJ Black. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I hardly have any bad days lately. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So you recently, like I mentioned in my opening statement, you recently agreed to wrestle for Universal Championship Wrestling. How excited are you to wrestle for this unique and exciting independent company whose motto is really built around the tradition of professional wrestling?
I'm very excited. I mean, obviously, one of my favorite things on the independent scene is working at new places, for new companies, and working new talent. I think it's a fantastic time to be a wrestler, and an even better time to be a wrestling fan right now. You know, there's so many talented guys on the independents, and there's so many new companies popping up, and all these new TV companies trying to sign new talent. It's really an exciting time all around in wrestling, and the guys like UCW, they put on a great show, and I'm always excited to come hang out with the fans, and especially in the metro area of Atlanta where the show is. I'm always excited to go back to that area.
Yeah, and they'll be happy to see you for sure. And I tell you, with Universal Championship Wrestling, and I've mentioned this in past interviews I've done with their talent, it's nonstop action. It's high intensity. It's never boring. It's a blend of old school wrestling with new school wrestling. And honest to goodness, I've never been to a show where I wasn't thoroughly impressed and very excited when I left there.
That's perfect, because that's my style. That's exactly everything you mentioned there is my style. My style is hybrid. It's fast. It's fun, and I also throw in a lot of old school stuff in there. And I'm a huge fan of obviously old school wrestling. And I'm a student of the game. I study old and new. And, I try to mix it all up, and because I feel like wrestling is an art form, right? And art is kind of subjective, and different people like different things. So I like to sprinkle a little bit of everything in there, so I make sure every single person in the crowd can go home and be like, yo, did you see that guy PJ Black?
Yeah.
He was awesome.
Well, I think you're going to fit in good with Universal Championship Wrestling then, from what I can hear. I think it should be very exciting. So tell me about, you talked a little bit about independent wrestling. What are your thoughts on the state of independent wrestling right now?
I think it's great. I think, like, right now, next month I would be wrestling for 22 years, but I refereed matches for like 4 or 5 years before that. So I've been in the business for 25 years. So I've seen a lot of stuff come and go. I feel like right now is a very, very exciting time in wrestling. Like I mentioned before, like the independents, so many new companies popping up. There's a lot of companies with TV deals and the stuff that we see with MLW and AEW and so many other up-and-coming companies that can actually sign talent to contracts. And it's pretty cool, too, because, companies like ROH and TNA, those talent are signed to contracts, but they can still do independent bookings, and a lot of people don't realize that, and I think that's fantastic. So we get to see matchups of, like a TNA champion versus the ROH champion, and, obviously there's on like a UCW show, for instance. I feel like it's a really incredible, exciting time. I cannot express how excited I am about 2019.
Let's talk a little bit about your training regimen. What do you do to keep yourself ready to compete?
I used to do like the bodybuilding thing for years and years, but bodybuilding only helps for aesthetics, to look good, and which is great because everyone wants to look good. But recently, in the last year or so, I've changed it up. I do a lot of free running. I do a lot of gymnastic stuff. I do a lot of functional training, because wrestling is still a physical sport. You have to jump up and down, do flips off the rope, and it's a little bit different than what it used to be. So I kind of train in calisthenics, which is all body weight training. I'm currently the heaviest I've ever been in my life, but I'm also in the best shape of my life. So whatever I'm doing is working. But yeah, and I do obviously a lot of extreme sports on the side, which keeps me fit. Do a lot of hiking at altitude, which helps a lot. But yeah, I try not to stick to the same thing. I don't do the same routines. I do every day in the gym will be different every day. Yesterday I was in the ring actually for the first time in a long time, like learning some new flips, just trying to come up with some new stuff, because like I feel like the younger generation keeps evolving and they keep like pushing us further and further. And I was like, okay, people know what I can do, so I gotta add in some new things to show them, like, yo, I can still do and learn some new things too, and keep up with the younger talents of today.
Well, you were mentioning about some of the other things you do outside of the ring, and I'm hearing that you've done some extreme sports like jumping off buildings and cliffs and all this other stuff. How in the world do you do that kind of stuff? I commend you. I'm scared. This guy right here is scared to death of heights. There's no way in the world I'm jumping off a building or a cliff or an airplane. How do you do that?
That was kind of just a hobby of mine that I do on the side. Skydiving and base jumping. It's extreme sports, but a lot of people think that us extreme athletes, we're like these crazy people with a death wish and stuff like that. But it's actually quite the opposite. It's a very calculated sport. A lot of thinking and thought goes into it. I don't just put on a parachute and jump off a building. It's
right.
Like days and days and days of planning, checking the weather, the angles, where you're going to land. There's a lot of thought that goes in, and I feel like the whole process, to me, that's what's intriguing. Obviously, the jump is fun, it's great, but it's over so quickly. But the whole process, that's really what intrigues me. It's kind of like building a wrestling show almost.
Yeah, I can see that. The build-up's the excitement there.
Yep.
Yeah, most definitely. So how does that training compare to your in-ring training? Any differences there? I mean, does that help you when you get in the ring, the training you do for this stuff?
Yeah, it definitely does. Overall, I got badly injured a while ago, and so I tried out a bunch of different things, and stuff that have really helped me in my life is meditation. And I know it sounds funny, like people think like, well, what do? You just sit there and people like a Buddha, and say Om, but like meditation really is just you going quiet into your own mind. And I feel like base jumping and skydiving is a forced meditation, because you're completely present at that moment. You don't think of the stuff that you have to do tomorrow, or the bills that you have to pay, or something that happened or bothered you yesterday. Nothing matters. Like nothing in the world matters except for that specific moment where you have to do something. So it's kind of like a forced meditation, and that's what draws me to that.
That sounds extremely interesting. I never really looked at it that way in terms of being meditation. I would think it's more of an adrenaline rush, but hearing you talk about that, it makes total sense.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people, it is a huge adrenaline rush, but for me, more than anything, it's more of a meditation for me.
So early on in your career, and of course currently, you were referred to as PJ Black. You went by the character name PJ Black, and when you went to WWE, you switched over to Justin Gabriel. That's a big change there in name. How was that your decision, or was that the WWE creative team?
Yeah, so the WWE, they want to own everything, right? And understandably, it's a big company, it's a corporate company, and
right.
For trademarks and copyrights and stuff like that, they have to own everything. There's obviously a few guys that can get away with using their own names, and that's why they change the system. And I feel like it keeps changing back and forth. But at that time, when I was going through developmental, everyone had to come up with like a name and a last name that's completely different, that doesn't sound like your name at all. And I came up with Justin Angel, actually. That's the character I wanted to run with. And Vince knew Chris Angel, so he didn't like the Angel character, and he changed it to Gabriel my first day on NXT TV without me even knowing.
Oh, wow.
And so it kind of just like stuck from there. I had no choice. Made the best of it. And a lot of people don't realize that. I was only Justin Gabriel for 8-9 years. I've been PJ Black for 15, 16 years now.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So you signed that developmental deal with WWE in 2008. What were the major differences you saw with WWE compared to what you were accustomed to in some of the other promotions that you worked for?
So I grew up in South Africa, and that's where I mainly worked. South Africa, Europe, North Africa, Eastern Europe, and stuff like that. And WWE actually moved me to the US. So that was the first time I came to the US was with WWE. But yeah, it was very different at that time, especially growing up in Africa. It's a third world country. A lot of people don't realize this, but in the 80s, early 90s, South Africa was like an unofficial territory. Remember back in the day when we had the territories?
Right.
I remember growing up seeing Andre the Giant and Hogan come wrestle our local champion in South Africa. But of course, there was no YouTube or internet back then, so like there's no record of this stuff.
Right.
But I remember the stuff as a kid, and like obviously when I grew up, I was 16, 17, broke into the business, did that whole territory myself. It kind of died out in 99, and that's why I kind of left. I went to Europe. I lived in England for 5 years and trained there and worked some independent shows, and the wrestling was just about to like boom in Europe. And like between 2002 to 2005, it went through like a massive spike, and then it kind of like died down again. And I feel like in 2012, it just blew up. Like Europe right now is big. That's why WWE went in there and did the NXT UK thing and the UK tournament, and obviously they go in there wherever the money is, and that that's just how it works. It's a business, it's a corporation, but yeah, I was there for the start of all of that.
Now, if I understand correctly or remember correctly, your dad was actually a very famous wrestler and promoter in South Africa, correct?
Correct. Yep, that's where I got my start. He passed away in '99, though. That's why wrestling kind of died, because he ran one of the biggest promotions, and then everyone expected me to take over the company, but I was like, I'm not a promoter, I'm a wrestler. This is what I want to do, and I was 18 at the time, so for me to run like one of the biggest companies at that time in Africa, it didn't make sense in my head. So I just kind of like, I packed a bag and I just ran away, and I was like, I'm just going to go do the indies worldwide.
Now, back then, when you signed that developmental deal, is when FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling, existed, and you, of course, wrestled for them. What were some of your most memorable opponents in FCW?
Oh, man, so many guys. I mean, guys that you see on TV today.
Right.
Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, Leo Kruger, who later became Adam Rose, Fandango, Trent Beretta, who's in New Japan right now. So many guys. Like, if you look at the roster page from that era, I think there's probably like 2 or 3 guys who didn't make it. Like every single one of those dudes, made it and is wrestling currently on either the independents or signed to a big contract to a TV company somewhere. And in my 20 years, that was probably the most fun I've ever had too. I was in developmental for 10 months only, which is very short. A lot of those guys have been there for like 4, 5, 6 years. And then the NXT thing happened, the Nexus thing happened after that. So it was kind of like being at the right time, at the right place. But yeah, it was one of the most fun times in my life. Think about this. Like, I got moved to a foreign country. I got moved to the U.S., getting paid a ton of money to just wrestle every day. I had no bills to pay. I didn't have a car payment. I didn't even have a phone. Like, I had someone pick me up at the house every day. We'd go to the gym, go to the wrestling practice, go to the show at night. And then that was my kind of like loop, like every single day for 10 months until I got called up onto TV. It was a really fun time in my life for sure. Just, like being a 25-year-old kid and just getting paid like thousands of dollars just to wrestle. Like it was amazing.
Yeah, you had it made, man. That sounds awesome. Now, you were there for the birth of NXT. Did you or anyone else there foresee it turning into the brand that it ended up being today?
No, completely not. Funny story. When NXT started, it was supposed to be a reality show like The Ultimate Fighter,
right.
The UFC thing where everyone lives in the house. That was the idea going into that. And then obviously WWE creative, time just kind of like flew by. They didn't have a house. They didn't have a plan. They didn't have a show or anything. And at that time, the first season of NXT was live on TV because we had to film live on the East Coast or the West Coast, I think. That's when the network just started. And so, yeah, they had no plans. So, like, okay, guess we're just going to do a normal wrestling show. And a lot of people didn't realize this either. A lot of it, nothing was scripted. The promos, the matches, it was just kind of like, yo, you guys just go do your thing. And I feel like we messed it up so bad that season 2 and 3 was kind of completely scripted. And, it turned into something completely different. And then season 4 and then season 5. And then eventually, I don't know, it kind of just became a byproduct of WWE, like Superstars is, or Main Event, just like an extra show.
Right.
And then Triple H became the CEO, and he turned it into an actual brand, which I think he did a fantastic job with.
Yeah, no question. I mean, it kind of segues into another question I had for you. What are your thoughts on how they're currently developing the talent in NXT and the product that they're putting out there for the fans?
So it's good and bad in a way. It's good because I think it's a great product. They have some phenomenal athletes, great talent. I love the product myself. The problem is I don't think that the Performance Center is going to produce new talent. Like when we were in FCW, like 10, 12 guys would go up on the road and they were instant stars. Like right now, like the Performance Center hasn't produced any talent. All those guys already made names for themselves on the independent circuits or other companies.
True.
I think over the last 5 years they produced one person, and that was Braun Strowman. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, no one else that came out of there they actually made. All those other kids made their names on the independent circuit or another company already. But still, I mean, you can't knock the system. It's a great system. The Performance Center itself is world class. The gym there, they have a bunch of rings and crash pads, and they have the best coaches in the world. They have green screen rooms there. They have promo coaches, promo rooms. You know, it's next level. So it was inevitable that it was going to become a brand to stand by itself.
And what are your feelings about how they're using the talent when they're called up to the main roster? Because that's a little bit of criticism that they've received is that, hey, they're doing phenomenal in the NXT brand, but they get called up to the main roster and they sort of fizzle out a little bit. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, and it's kind of sad too, you know, because you see, like, here's a perfect example. Like Adam Rose was one of the most over and fun characters in NXT, and then they pull him on the road, and then, you know, nothing. And I mean, you see that happen all the time. So I feel like there's just maybe a little disconnect. Maybe there's a little communication gap between Hunter and Vince. You know, I feel like that's going to be there for a while until I don't even know how I personally would sort that out. It's kind of sad, but I feel like they will. It's just going to take time, and wrestling keeps evolving, and the development system or NXT just keeps evolving, and you know, like, hopefully for all the fans, they'll figure that stuff out sooner or later.
I agree totally with you. Let's talk about your time with Nexus. I thought it was a fantastic storyline, and it made me want to tune in to see what you guys were going to do next. I thoroughly enjoyed it. What were you guys being told by WWE creative team when this incredible faction was being formed?
At that time, and that's also why it worked, because we didn't have a lot of input from a lot of different people. Like, that's the problem these days. You have input from like 10 different agents, 10 different creative writers, and there's agents and producers, and that's what the problem is these days, I feel like. But at that time, we were just taking direction directly from Vince. It was his baby. It was his idea, and he was just like, do whatever you guys want. Like the shittier, the better, you know.
Right.
You know, and then we never thought it was going to be as big as it was, and it was a really fun run because while we're doing it, we're like, oh wow, this could be something really big, and the moment we realized it was going to be something big, it was the backstage people, actually. You know, there's some camera guys and some crew guys, and you know, the seamstress ladies. Those people have been there for 25 to 30 years with the company. People don't realize this, like, because people don't hear or talk about the crew or the backstage people, but they've been there for a long time. And when those people have seen a lot of wrestling and a lot of angles and different characters in their lives, when those people come up to you and be like, wow, guys, this is great, this is unique, like, I cannot wait to see what you guys do next week.
Yeah.
That's when we were like, oh shit, this is kind of cool, like this. And yeah, we just ran with it. I feel like that whole storyline should have dragged out a little bit more. I mean, we didn't even get a WrestleMania moment out of that, which is sad.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, you're right. I was very disappointed by that.
Yeah. But I mean, it was what it was. Everyone involved, I feel like, learned a bunch of lessons, especially the people who try to kind of stop that storyline. And I'm not going to go too much into that. I mean, you can kind of go Google what happened with that whole thing. And
Sure. Now, early in 2011, you split away from Nexus. What were your feelings on the direction of your character and where it was going at that time?
Well, after the Nexus, we started the Core, which is kind of like a knuckle version of that.
Right.
Like the core of the Nexus. It was supposed to be, but that momentum was already killed. Like, we didn't have that Nexus momentum anymore, and it was fun for a little while. They gave us a bunch of cool storylines. One of the coolest ones that I can remember Edge actually retired as the world heavyweight champion. He didn't lose a match for like 2 years. I think the last match that he lost on TV was against Justin Gabriel.
Nice.
The stat that actually just came up on Monday. Yeah, I think Monday it was 8 years ago. So that was like one of the most memorable things out of the core. And then right after the core, we all went in our singles run, and I really thought that I was gonna get a big push as a baby face, and it just never happened. Like, every week it was something else, and then like something else, and then no, do this, and that kind of dragged out for like 2-3 years, and eventually I was just fed up, and that's what led me to my departure.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I'm not just saying this because I'm doing an interview with you. I'm sincere when I say this. I was a big fan of your character and your in-ring style at that time, and I felt you deserved a title run. Was there ever a plan for that?
But there was, actually. I don't know if you remember Cody Rhodes when he won the title, when he brought back the white IC title.
Yep.
I was doing a anti-bullying thing where Cody would bully Hornswoggle, and I would run in every week and save him. And it was supposed to be a big title run for me there, but a bunch of stuff happened, which, again, I don't really want to talk about it. Let's just say it was some politics that happened, and then that never happened, which I wasn't mad at the time, because maybe I wasn't ready. And then something came around again a little bit later, and again, it was kind of just like stopped dead in its tracks. And I was like, all right, like someone here is working against me, so I'm going to have to try to do my own thing. But it's okay. I mean, there's still time. I feel like at the time, maybe I wasn't ready. I had a lot of weaknesses at that time, which I feel like right now are my strengths. So if I ever do go back, it'll be a completely different ball game. They did actually approach me to go back to NXT recently, but I turned that down to take another offer. I actually today. What's today?
22nd.
Today, as of today, the 22nd, I can finally. I know the Dirt Sheets have been saying this for months, but officially, I signed my contract today.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I got a scoop there, right?
You got it. You're the first guy to know it. Like,
nice.
I know they reported it on the Dirt Sheets for the last 3-4 weeks, but it was never official. It was just negotiations.
Well, thanks for that, man. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is the Cranium shot portion of the interview. I'm going to say a name, all right, and you give me the first reaction to that name. Can be a word, one-word reaction, could be several words. You ready?
Okay.
All right, Matt Hardy.
Great coach.
Wade Barrett.
Phenomenal promo.
Drew McIntyre.
The chosen one.
CM Punk.
Pipe bomb.
All right, finally, The Miz.
The Miz. Equally annoying in real life as his character on TV.
Well, PJ, man, I really appreciate your time today. It's been an absolute honor to sit down and talk about your career. I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. Thank you for the insight and the good questions. I normally get the same questions over and over. I really appreciate your time too. Thank you.
No problem at all. And fans, make sure you check out PJ at Universal Championship Wrestling Super Brawl show taking place on Saturday, February the 2nd, a Super Bowl weekend in Griffin, Georgia. Buying a ticket is extremely simple. Just go to their website. It's ucwtv.com. Again, ucwtv.com. You can also follow them on Universal Championship Wrestling social media, which is on Instagram and Twitter. It's at UCWTV, and also on Facebook under Universal Championship Wrestling. And before we go, PJ, how can the fans follow you on social media?
Yes, I'm very active on social media, especially Instagram. You can go to my website. It's pjblack.com. And all the links to all my social medias will be there. The links to my YouTube page will be there. On my YouTube page, there's a lot of my favorite independent matches and moments in WWE, and a lot of my base jumping stuff. If anyone wants to check out the skydiving stuff and base jumping stuff that I do outside of wrestling, there's a lot of fun stuff on there too. You can buy some merch on there. It's, all the links to the social media will be on pjblack.com.
PJ, again, thank you again for your time, and I cannot wait to see you in action, Universal Championship Wrestling.
Yes, sir. I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll be there.
Fans, I hope you enjoyed that interview with PJ Black. I encourage you to go to my website. That's chairshotstothecranium.com. Again, chairshotstothecranium.com. Listen to all my past interviews on there. Read old columns from back in the day. Look at other very entertaining information that I have on my website. Again, chairshotstothecranium.com. Mobile friendly, so you can pull it up on that mobile device that you have in front of you. Easy to scroll through and find all the information that you need. Also, make sure that you follow me on Instagram and Twitter, Chair2Cranium. That's Chair, the number 2, Cranium, on Instagram and on Twitter. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. On there, you'll see all my past interviews. You'll also see all my past shows, and you do not want to miss that. So subscribe on the YouTube channel. As always, I appreciate you listening, and thank you for taking another chair shot to the cranium.